caught up with some of our city's leading food journalists and a blogger recently to explore the subject of food reviews.
We wanted to ask if the man in the street really does get an honest, unbiased and fair opinion of the dining experience, and ultimately who is being served, the reader or the restaurant.
So at HK Magazine, we definitely represent the reader. We write all our reviews with our reader in mind. Obviously, we're writing about the food and beverage industry, and we have some clients that pay for advertising within HK Magazine, and sometimes there will be a little bit of tension if we write negative versus positive reviews for specific clients, but at the end of the day, we serve our reader. Yeah.
And how does that differ with some of you guys?
I think we'd all agree that independent food writers, I mean writers who are not writing for a trade publication, are writing for the readers. If you're not, then you might as well just go to the other side and be in PR or whatever. I think that what we do is just try to tell the readers if the restaurant is worth going to, if it's a good value. We're just reviewing it as a reader ourselves, as anyone would go into a restaurant and eat. There's different ways of food reviewing, and our ways is to go in there as a regular client.
Sure. If you're writing a review to get people to make a decision to dine there or not dine there, is there an obligation or something that a reviewer, is there a level of qualification that one needs to have to be able to give a qualified opinion on that review?
Everybody has an opinion. I mean, if my grandmother went into a restaurant, she would have an opinion about whether it's good or not. For me, as a food professional, I mean, I was a chef. So I do know what I'm tasting, and I do know how it's prepared most of the time. And I think that gives me an unusual perspective because there's not very many of us who were chefs. But I also go in there as anybody would and pay for the food and eat.
I think the difference comes though when it's somebody's livelihood that's at stake. So I think from a perspective of a reader, there is an element of trust in the publication or the blogger that you're reading, and I think there's an expectation that the person who writes that review knows what he's talking about. And I think definitely when somebody's livelihood is at risk, there has to be some level of understanding of the industry. What do you think, Johannes?
Well, I'm freelance right now, so I write for a lot of different publications, and I used to be dining editor of HK Mag, and we used to slag off some restaurants because it was more of a city mag, pretty casual. But nowadays, I don't really, if I think it's going to be a negative review, I actually will rather not write about it.
That's what I do. I won't write a review if it's completely negative.
So how are you serving your reader then if you're choosing not to give the truth? Is there now, how does that fit in?
The good truth.
I have space for 2 reviews a week. Why would I want to fill it with something that's completely negative when there's other restaurants out there that should be promoted, because they're good?
Okay.
It's focusing on the positive, I suppose.
So how about, say, Kelvin, with you? You have a blog and you don't have page limits and so on. Would you choose to only kind of write about the good restaurants, or will you kind of go write about the bad ones, bad experiences as well?
I actually write about the good ones and the mediocre ones. It's kind of like a warning to people. I started writing not because I wanted to keep eating more food, but I wanted to promote the Hong Kong dining scene. So if you think about it, we're competing with places like Tokyo, Singapore and Shanghai. So someone has to write about and promote better restaurants. It will keep it running for the whole city.
What do you mean you did it as a warning?
I mean, like, for example, at the beginning when I first came back to Hong Kong a few years ago, I noticed a lot of reviews on open rice were really substandard, to be honest.
This open rice?
Yes. So that was actually my incentive to write, because people were complaining about some food that were actually served properly in Hong Kong. And the chefs were like really frustrated because no one understood about the dishes. And I wanted to give a counter opinion to give them support so we can keep it rolling for the next few years. And you know how it's been improving the food scene in Hong Kong? So I wanted to give it that, make that happen.
So, do you think that when you write a review, you are helping a reader make the decision of whether they want to dine at that place? Is that the ultimate kind of goal for the reader?
I think it depends on the reader, because some of them actually read what you write. But I think after...
What do they do if they don't read what you want to write? Why are they on your blog?
You'd be surprised. Like, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Johannes got that.
Yeah.
Like, at the beginning, I was writing more words, but now it's more dependent on your photos.
But is that because you want to keep or gain more readers? Or is that because you think a picture says 1,000 words?
Yes, that, and also, I mean, for me, the incentive to write is not that huge, to be honest, because I don't get any money from it. So you can say that I get some free meals sometimes, but a lot of them I actually still pay for myself. So you have to work on your other job too.
So where would you say then the boundaries of ethics come into this? If you are paid for a review, is the man in the street being served knowing then that you are actually paid to give that review by a restaurant? Or if a meal is free, is that again fair to a reader? Should, in a traditional sense, a review be something that's actually done, that's unbiased, ethical, honest, and at best that the restaurant doesn't even know that they're being reviewed?
I think it goes both ways.
Go on, sorry.
Right? No? Okay.
I think all of us are, I mean, even I would be recognized in some restaurants, even though I tried to be anonymous. And so in some sense that might change the review a bit. It shouldn't change it entirely, because if a restaurant is really bad, you know, I think we would know about it. We're not just eating our food, we're looking at how everybody is being served. If you go to a restaurant and you are recognized and your food looks so much better than the table next to it, I will mention that in the review.
And do you think it's fair to actually review restaurants based on PR invitations or anything like that? Do you think that what you're being given at one of those events is different from a unsolicited review?
That's not what a review actually is. I mean, we do get invited to a lot of tastings and openings, but I think, you know, back in HK Mag, when we do a review, we go anonymously, or try to be.
We're totally unbiased. So actually our company compensates us for the reviews. And when we actually get invitations at different restaurants, we treat them as tastings, and they are not reviewed.
And do you think, though, that the lines between review and sort of coverage have been blurred over time?
I can't speak on behalf of the whole industry, but definitely at HK Mag the line has not been blurred. We're very clear about what is a review. We do give negative as well as positive reviews, and sometimes we get hate mail for it. But we keep the lines very clear.
That's fair.
So Johannes, you write for a range of publications. How about the sort of publications that you've encountered?
Can I name names?
If you like.
If you like.
Well, I mean, a lot of the more prestigious magazines, or for, you know, like the socialite scene, those type of publications, the review line is kind of blurred, because it's kind of just, you know, it's a big flashy, you know,
Affair, and they invite
page, and then you talk about, you know, your dining experience. So there it's kind of blurred, even though they do come up with supposedly.
So is it titled as a review? Like, is it put in a section where it's called a review, or is it just like feature?
No, it's just a feature. But then there is, you know, every year there's the, you know, best.
There's a guide.
There's a guide for the, you know, top restaurants, and there it's kind of like.
So we've sort of established that there is a difference between review and features, and I think if the man in the street knows that it's a feature, then I think it's fair game.
I think most people will, you know, when they read. Smart, intelligent readers should be.
Yes, and you have to be transparent about the whole thing. You have to declare properly.
But in the end, a review is an opinion of one meal. I mean, there's different ways of doing reviews. A lot of the English publications put a photo byline so they're known, and I admire them because they're excellent writers. 90% of the review is like what they've done that week, and it's brilliant because it's so well written and it keeps you absorbed. And then the last 10% is about the food. The New York Times does a review where they go multiple times and get a good overview of, you know, the entire menu, the service, and average it out. But it's not really an average out, but it's. And then most of us review a restaurant one time, as anonymously as possible, and pay for the food. But that's how a person would eat at a restaurant, right? That's how a normal person would eat. They go once, and if it's great, they'll tell their friends. If it's not great, they'll tell their friends. That's what we try to do. I mean, what if we got the restaurant on a bad day, where the chef was out, where the staff, all the staff quit and they're using somebody else? But that's not our fault.
Sure.
That's the restaurant's fault. If the rest of the kitchen cannot put out a meal that's of the quality as when the chef is there, that's not our fault. And we're still paying the same amount of money. So it's fair to review it.
We believe the line between advertorial pieces and traditional review should be very clear, and that someone writing, irrespective of the medium, should state it clearly if they've been invited by a PR firm, given a freebie, or at worst, received payment for that opinion.
We're not saying that there's anything wrong with publicity, but everyone subscribing to a standard of ethics saves you the irritation of a less than satisfactory experience. We popped into Central to ask a few people their opinions on online review platforms, who they trust for restaurant reviews, and why. So, how do you decide where you go for dinner? Do you use newspaper reviews, or do you use review websites?
I usually use review websites, probably TripAdvisor. Also, if it's fine dining, maybe the San Pellegrino guide of top restaurants in the world.
So on review sites like TripAdvisor, would you value someone's opinion if they had written about 1,000 reviews versus someone who's written 10?
No, usually not, because I think the person that's written 1,000 reviews, they're usually the sort of people who complain about everything, and I usually take their review with a big pinch of salt and move on to someone else.
Okay.
Whereas if I like something, I'll review it. It has to be really, really good before I'll jump online and review it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that do it once, better.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks. So I just want to ask, how do you guys decide where you want to go for dinner? Do you look online? Do you read newspapers? Read reviews?
I would go on recommendations, mostly from friends, or online as well.
Yeah, reviews online as well.
Yeah. So do you think that there's a lot of review sites now that allow just normal people to go onto the site to write their review? Would you trust someone who's written 1,000 reviews versus someone who's written about 10? Would you trust them more?
Yeah, I'd probably trust more the one that's written 1,000.
Okay. Yep.
The one that's written 10 might just be a family friend of, say, the restaurant.
Right. Okay. And about you? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.